Hi everyone, this is a video about Emma and I's sensory map of Worcester. And in this video, we want to show that sensory experience have mobility with its hierarchy exchanging position constantly and unexpectedly. In a connected sensory map of these different places, we have been to some of them only one time but others several times. The perceptions change from time to time, set to set, and person to person. Well, the dominant sense in Western Creamery for me is definitely smell. Um, Actually, we went there with my Chinese friend the second day I arrived here. We just went out for dessert after dinner at Kimball, driving down a hill, passing through the roads, and diving into the starry night. I can still recall the creamy smell of the farm when the breeze blew through my nose. The freshness of the grass, herbs, and trees that stand out to me in the late August summer night, saving me from the swamp of extremely weariness. And I just can't find a reason not to seize the moment. Birds are singing with the touch of wind, the dogs are running beside me, people are enjoying their indulgent guilty pleasure with their tasty bud, and the glory of God pouring above our heads. I lay on the fence on that farm since part of the region was not open until fall, which reminds me that the coordination with all five senses can really change with seasons. Fall will introduce more energy to his farm, like the plants, which are uniformly green, will turn into yellow, orange, and reddish. While the dominant sense for the Sky Zone park is touch, definitely. Like it felt amazing when we jumped on those giant pumping beds that inject us into the high position. Every touch of the ground makes people more powerful and energetic in that the elastic force coming from the under enables us to reach a higher position, and those continuous sensations will coming from the weightlessness of bouncing, flipping, and landing in a pit filled with foam cubes. The sound of that environment was also unforgettable.
In my opinion, the most dominant sense of Sky Zone Trampoline Park, as well as many other trampoline parks that I've been to, because they're all pretty similar in my opinion, is definitely the sense of hearing. The sounds that you hear, like Yue said, are very unforgettable. They typically have some sort of upbeat pop music playing in the background that you'll sing along to, and you can hear the springs of the trampolines squeezing together and depart squeaking like that, and you hear your socks rubbing against the material of the trampolines. And there's also that aspect, but it's also a business. So when you first walk in the door, you have the same sensations that you would as any other business. Phones ringing, chaotic people behind a desk, pens, especially at this type of place where you have to fill out waivers before you're able to actually enter the park. And because it's a place where children spend a lot of time, you hear a lot of yelling and screaming kids.
The dominant sense for the Worcester Art Museum is vision for me. When I get there, they're doing this art display about cat, and there are lots of Japanese style artwork, and there are tons of different textures of artworks and statues. And the sound in art museum is quite insignificant because people are talking in low volume, and you can only hear the footstep.
The dominant sense, in my opinion, as well, is also the sense of sight, because in each portion of the museum there's something different. However, they all have that one thing in common. The different colors and textures of each exhibit are trying to evoke a certain feeling within the viewer, and for the most part this is done by the sense of sight, because you can't really touch or smell or taste most of the exhibits, so you kind of have to appreciate them by their sight. So in order to get in this museum, they have to have a unique way of evoking a sensual experience primarily through sight. When you first walk up to Worcester East Middle School, you would think that because of the intricate structure of the outside of the building that vision would be your primary sense. However, in my opinion, because I spend most of my time on Tuesday mornings for my CBL within the building, my dominant sense at this location would be hearing. When you first walk in, you hear the loud creak of the metal doorway. It clicks to unlock after you press the pager to let yourself in as a tutor. You walk in to the main office and you can hear pens scribbling and adults yelling and phones ringing, and it reminds you of the typical office setting. Then I walk to the classroom that I'm designated to be in, and the floors are very old, so they creak with a specific noise that reminds me of some of the floors actually in Fenwick. However, for the most part, being at this school brings me back to when I was in middle school because of the loud children and just kind of commotion really triggered my sense of hearing and was definitely my most dominant sense.
I witnessed a piano stunningly and solely sitting in an open area with nothing surrounding it but a trash truck. The yellow capital letter "Caution" was painted on the surface, and most of the keys were broken apart. For me, a person who haven't touched her piano for half a month and missed it so much, its vision struck me and bring a pull of emotions: solitude, homesick, ecstatic, and relieved. I tried to play a whole piece of music on that work of art. Some parts of the keyboard were even way too decrepit, which makes them hard to be pressed when I use all my effort to keep this tactile sensation. Although the smell of trash was lingering around, it still cannot expel me from the embrace of this beautiful sound.
When I first arrived at Sholin Farms, my immediate dominant sense was definitely sight. It reminded me very much of the apple orchard back in my hometown, which is known as Indian Ladder Farms. The fall foliage is just so beautiful and brought back a lot of memories from that, as well as the fresh fruit reminded me of my favorite Honeycrisp apples that my mom would always pack me for school lunches, which are a little bit different than the fruit that we get to see in Kimball. It was really awesome to get the sight of fresh fruit and vegetables. Walking around Sholin Farms, I saw all the pumpkins, which reminded me of my sister back home, who I would always sit at the kitchen counter and watch her carve pumpkins for Halloween, or walking through and seeing all the gourds, and my mom would pick the most intricate ones to just put throughout the house, and that sight here at the farms reminded me of being home.
While the dominant sense for the Spring Lake is sound for me, I remember that I can already hear people chatting around and the sound of volleyball bouncing back and forth, the flapping of water on the bank, even before I get into that place. A group of students were yelling for a swimming competition, and beating the water and clapping their hands. Besides all kinds of voices, the touches also impressed me to a heavy degree. For instance, I didn't realize how soft and therapeutic the sands and the waters are until I took off my shoes running on the beach all the way into the water. The touch of water provides us with a sense of safety because it brings us back to the old memory. Later on that day, I rented a single canoe, driving my own canoe, enjoying the sound of paddling and sensing every touch with the water.
The first time I went to the DCU Center was for a Holy Cross hockey game against Providence College, and it was definitely an experience that I'll never forget. However, unlike a lot of the locations that we went to for this project, I didn't really feel that it had a dominant sense. I felt that this location really demonstrated the multimodality of all the senses, because obviously the sight of the sport reminded me again of my childhood, just being very active in sports, not necessarily hockey, but just the competitiveness that's involved in all sports. Same thing goes with the sounds. You can hear the teammates cheering and the crowd cheering, which gets everybody excited. And obviously being in a hockey rink, it's freezing cold, so that sense of touch is also very present on the seat and just in the room, being layered in jackets. So I think that a lot of those senses can work together in a space like this.
The dominant sense for the Blackstone Valley for me is taste, because we have this wonderful dinner at Longhorn. Longhorn is a steakhouse, and the color of the food is really, really diverse, like really attractive to the customers. So it's kind of like the combination of taste and visual sensation.
My experience at the Blackstone Shopping Center was a tad different than Yue's, in the sense that I spent it mostly shopping instead of at a restaurant, and because of that, my dominant sense at this location would have to be touch, because in many of the stores that I went into, including Nordstrom Rack, DSW, and Dick's Sporting Goods, I was trying on a lot of things and touching things to feel that if I liked the material or not, or just for if it fit well, or for comfort. And even if I wasn't trying on that specific thing, just to kind of look through items, you have to shuffle through by touching almost everything that you pass by.
The dominant sense for me in my experience in the Holden Reservoir is also considered to be vision, because I saw those beautiful trees turning into yellow and orange and red. I mean, the weather is really, really good, and all of those trees seems amazing under the sunshine, and the wind are touching your skin, and the sun is also shining on you. I also remember the smell of that area is a kind of fishy smell. It's really unforgettable.
Like Yue, I was very drawn to the outside of the Holden water treatment plant. However, because we spent most of our time inside, that's what I'm going to talk about. When we first walked in, my dominant sense was immediately sound. Just a lot of the different rooms we walked in were very loud, even so to the point that we had to move to a different location when our tour guide was explaining how things work, because the one room was too loud to hear what was going on with the rest of the treatment plant. Also, in some of the rooms that were very open and large, there was a great echo, and in other rooms that kind of had water flowing through, you could hear the sound of that. Or even when we went to the control room, things that were kind of beeping or that kind of thing would catch your attention more so than just the general noise that you would typically hear.